Ethan Cole never planned to work for aliens, but hunger had a way of breaking pride. On the frontier worlds, jobs were rare, and humans were often seen as nothing more than muscle. He had fought in 3 wars, lost brothers in the dirt of nameless planets, and now all that was left was his reputation as a man who could get the job done. When the message arrived, it was short. Guard duty, good pay, discretion required. He accepted. Not because of the money, but because something about the request felt unfinished. And unfinished business had always been his curse. The city where the meeting was held was unlike any human settlement. Tall spires of glass and stone rose above glowing streets, and the air was thick with scents his mind couldn't place. Alien faces turned when they saw him walking past. The tall, scarred human, eyes sharp like a predator. Some whispered, some sneered, but none stepped in his way. Inside the great hall, 2 figures waited. Sisters. The first was tall, skin the color of sapphire stone, her long, dark hair falling across her shoulders. Her violet eyes glowed faintly, in the dim light. She carried herself with calm dignity, as if every breath was measured. This was Lyra, the elder. Beside her stood a woman shorter, fiercer, her skin red as flame. Her eyes burned gold, her stance sharp, like a blade drawn but never sheathed. This was Saris the younger. Ethan felt both gazes on him. It was like being measured, weighed, tested in silence. "You are the human," Lyra said, her voice soft, musical, but with a hidden edge. "We asked for someone who knows how to fight and survive." "I'm still breathing," Ethan answered, folding his arms. Saris smirked. "For now." The elder sister stepped forward. "The contract is simple. Protect us. Our enemies are many, but their faces hide in shadows. We cannot leave this house without risk. You will stay here, guard us day and night. Payment will be doubled if you succeed." Ethan's brow furrowed. "You're asking me to guard a house? That doesn't sound like trouble." Saris leaned closer, her gold eyes flashing. "Then you have not seen the knives in the dark." There was a silence. Ethan's instincts stirred. He had felt that same silence on battlefields just before the first shot was fired. He looked around the hall. Guards stood near the doors, but their hands were nervous on their weapons. Servants moved too quickly, eyes avoiding his. The sisters' own kin seemed uneasy. This wasn't just a guard job, this was a nest of secrets. Ethan nodded slowly. "Fine, I'll take the contract. But when I fight for someone, I fight all the way. That means I need to know what I'm really protecting you from." Lyra and Saris exchanged a look. A silent message passed between them. Then Lyra said, "Not yet. If you live through the first night, we will tell you more." It wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was the only one they would give. That evening, Ethan walked through the estate. It was large, built with alien beauty, stone arches carved with runes, walls glowing faintly with energy veins, tall windows that showed the city lights outside. Yet for all its beauty, the place felt cold. Not like a home, but like a cage. He checked the doors, the gates, the walls. His soldier's mind marked every blind spot, every weak point. He had learned long ago that walls were nothing without eyes to watch them. As night fell, the sisters retreated to their chambers. The guards posted outside whispered in a language Ethan didn't understand, but he caught their tone. Doubt, fear. He stayed in the main hall, a rifle across his lap, eyes half closed but senses sharp. The hours crawled. Silence pressed against him, thick and heavy. Then, a sound. Soft, almost nothing. But Ethan had lived too long with death at his side to miss it. Footsteps. Too light to be a guard. Too careful to be a servant. He rose without a word, moving across the hall like a shadow. The sound came again, closer now. A floorboard creaked, and then he saw it. A figure, cloaked in black, slipping through the doorway. The intruder's blade glimmered faintly, poisoned, designed to kill quick and quiet. Ethan didn't think. Training took over. He slammed the intruder against the wall, steel flashing as he drew his knife. The alien hissed, fangs bared, but Ethan's blade was already at his throat. Wrong house, Ethan growled. The assassin struggled, but Ethan's strength held him down. The noise had stirred the sisters from their chambers. Lyra appeared first, eyes wide but calm, Saris right behind her, fire burning in her gaze. Already? Saris spat, fury in her voice. They dare enter here? Lyra's hand touched Ethan's shoulder. Do not kill him yet. We may need to know who sent him. The assassin hissed again, but Ethan pressed harder. He had no problem killing, but he obeyed. For now. Lyra's voice was steady, but Ethan noticed her hand tremble slightly as she looked at the intruder. Fear. Even the calm sister could not hide it. And in that moment, Ethan knew one thing for certain. This contract was not about guarding. 2 women in a fine house, it was war, and he had just stepped into the first battle. The assassin was dragged into the great hall and thrown to the stone floor. Ethan pressed a boot against the cloaked figure's chest, knife still in hand. The sisters stood above, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruder. Unmask him, Saris ordered. Her voice was sharp as steel. Ethan ripped back the hood. The face beneath was thin and pale, eyes like black glass, mouth filled with jagged teeth. Not a common thief. This was a trained killer. Lyra bent down, her expression tight. He carries the mark of the Wraith Guild. Ethan frowned. I've heard of them. Assassins who never stop until the target is dead. Saris crossed her arms. Then it has begun. We are hunted. The assassins spat at their feet. The Sisters of Blood must fall. Your father's empire is ash, and so will you be. Ethan silenced him with a swift punch that knocked the alien cold. But the word stayed in his mind. That night, Ethan stayed awake. He set traps at the windows, checked every lock twice, and walked the halls with his rifle ready. Yet his thoughts would not rest. The sisters were more than just noble exiles. Their enemies were not just bandits or jealous rivals. This was something deeper, tied to a legacy of power and blood. When dawn came, Ethan found Lyra in the courtyard. She stood barefoot on the stone, eyes closed, her hands glowing faintly with blue light. Energy hummed in the air around her. He stopped. What are you doing? Lyra opened her eyes. Healing. Centering. Ethan raised a brow. That glow? Magic? She gave a small smile. You would call it that. In truth, it is a gift of my people. Power we should never use for harm. Ethan looked at the faint scar on his arm from the fight. It still burned from the poison. Without a word, Lyra reached out and touched it. A warm light flowed from her fingers. The pain vanished, and the wound closed like it had never been. Ethan pulled back slightly, surprised. You could have done that last night, her voice was quiet. Trust must be earned even with you. Later in the training yard, Saris challenged him. She held 2 curved blades, their edges glowing with faint red energy. If you're going to stay, I need to know if you can fight like more than a mercenary. Ethan took a wooden staff from the rack. You really want to test me? Her smile was fierce. I want to see if you bleed. The spar began fast. Saris struck like lightning, blades flashing, her movements sharp and deadly. Ethan blocked, dodged, and countered, using his strength to push her back. She laughed as their weapons clashed, sparks flying in the air. You're slower than I thought, she teased. You're louder than I expected. He shot back. The fight ended with Ethan knocking one blade from her hand and holding the staff across her throat. For a second, their eyes locked, gold fire against human steel. Then she pushed him back and smirked. Not bad, human. Maybe you won't die too quickly. Lyra watched from the side, her calm face hiding a small, secret smile. But peace did not last. That evening, while servants prepared the meal, Ethan noticed one of them acting strangely, a young alien male, eyes darting, hands trembling as he poured wine into the sisters' cups. Ethan's instinct screamed. He stepped forward, knocking the cup from Lyra's hand before she could drink. The liquid spilled across the table, hissing, as it burned through the wood. Poison, Ethan growled. The servant froze, fear flooding his face. Sarah seized him by the collar and dragged him across the table. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her golden eyes burning. The servant shook his head, lips sealed. But Ethan noticed a faint mark burned into the skin of his wrist, the same hunter's sign carved on the wall last night. "He's not just a servant," Ethan said coldly. "He's theirs." The traitor laughed bitterly. "You cannot run. The Empire knows where you are. This house will burn." Before Sarah could strike him down, Ethan pulled her back. "Killing him now gives us nothing. He's proof they've already infiltrated the house." Lyra's calm voice trembled as she spoke. "If even our servants are turned, we are trapped in a web." That night the sisters sat together in the library, the firelight dancing across their alien faces. Ethan stood guard at the door, every sense alert. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Ethan, do you regret taking this contract?" He looked at her, then at Saris, who was sharpening her blade by the fire. "Regret doesn't matter. I took the job. I see it through." "But why?" Lyra pressed softly. "You could leave. No one would stop you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Because I don't walk away when enemies come through the door. Not when lives depend on me. That's not who I am." Saris glanced at him, her golden eyes softer than before. "Maybe you're not just another mercenary after all." Outside, the wind howled. Somewhere in the distance a horn sounded, a low, haunting note that chilled the air. Ethan raised his weapon. His voice was steady, but his gut was heavy with warning. "They're coming again." The horn faded into silence, but its echo hung, heavy in the air. Ethan stayed awake all night, guarding the sisters' chambers, rifle in hand. No one came through the gates, no blades cut through the shadows, yet his instincts told him the storm had only been delayed, not stopped. By morning, the house was restless. Servants whispered, some asking to leave. Ethan noticed fear in their eyes. They knew the horn's meaning. It was not a warning. It was a promise. In the training yard, Sarah swung her blades again and again, sweat dripping down her red skin. She fought like someone preparing for war, every strike sharper than the last. Ethan stepped in. "You'll wear yourself out before the fight comes." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Better to bleed in practice than to die in truth." He admired her fire, even if it burned recklessly. He picked up a wooden staff. "Then practice with someone who fights back." The spar began. This time, it wasn't playful. Sarah struck hard, each blow fueled by fury. Ethan blocked, countered, and pushed, his soldier's mind reading her rhythm. The clash of weapons filled the air until she finally stumbled, dropping one blade. Ethan lowered the staff but didn't smile. "You fight with rage. Rage blinds you." Saris glared, chest heaving. "And what do you fight with, human?" He answered simply. "Survival." For a moment she said nothing. Then she nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. Later that day, Lyra invited Ethan to the upper balcony. The city stretched far below, towers glowing like stars. She held a crystal orb in her hands, its soft blue light bathing her face. "This was our father's," she said quietly. "He ruled with power, but power breeds enemies. When he fell, they came for us. We have been running ever since." Ethan leaned against the railing. "And now they've found you again." Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes full of questions. "Why are you still here? You know this is more than a job." Ethan looked at the city lights. "Because I don't abandon people once I take their side. If I walk away, you're dead. I can't live with that." Her gaze softened. For the first time, Ethan saw not the calm leader, but a woman carrying the weight of her family's past. "You are strange, Ethan," she whispered. "Most humans take coin and vanish. You stay." He gave a small shrug. "Maybe I'm too stubborn." That night the bond grew stronger. The sisters joined him in the library where the fire cracked softly. Ethan shared stories of Earth, green forests, blue oceans, and cities filled with light. Lyra listened with quiet wonder, her eyes shining as if she could see those places through his words. Saris, though pretending to scoff, leaned closer every time he spoke, her sharp edges softening. "You humans sound reckless," Sarah said. "Fighting each other, burning your world, and still finding ways to rise again?" Ethan smirked. "Reckless, maybe, but we don't quit. That's why we're still here." The sisters exchanged a look, as if they had both been reminded of something they thought lost. For a brief moment, the house felt like a home, but the shadows never rested. Near midnight, Ethan heard the faint scrape of metal on stone. He rushed to the lower hall, rifle ready. What he found froze his blood. A symbol had been carved into the floor, glowing faintly red. The hunter's mark, but bigger this time, drawn with precision. It was not just a warning. It was a claim. "They're inside," Ethan muttered. The sisters came running, eyes wide as they saw the mark. Lyra's hand trembled against her lips. Sarah snarled, drawing her blades. "They mock us," she spat. "They walk through our halls as if we are already dead." Ethan scanned the shadows. "They want us afraid. They want you broken before the killing begins." Sarah pointed her blade at the mark. "Then we answer with blood." But Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. We fight smart or we lose. If they're already inside, then someone here is feeding them information." Lyra's voice dropped, heavy with dread. "A traitor." The next day, Ethan watched everyone closely. Every servant, every guard. Fear twisted the house tighter. Whispers spread, eyes avoided his, doors shut when he passed. In the kitchen, he found a small vial hidden beneath a basket of bread. The liquid shimmered dark red, carrying the stench of poison. He carried it to the sisters. "They're trying again." Lyra's face paled. "If even food is not safe," Sarah slammed her blade into the table, "then no one in this house is safe." Ethan looked at them both. "You wanted a guard. What you need is more than that. You need someone who fights beside you, not just in front of you. If I'm going to keep you alive, you'll have to trust me completely." Lyra's eyes met his. Sarah's fire steadied. For the first time, both sisters nodded together. The bond was sealed, not just protector and clients, but allies in survival. That night, the fire in the library burned low. Ethan sat with the sisters close by, the silence between them no longer heavy, but warm. For the first time since he arrived, he felt something unexpected. Not duty, not coin, home. But just as the thought settled, the ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling and a deep rumble shook the walls. Outside, horns sounded again, louder, closer, and joined by the crack of explosions. Ethan rose to his feet, rifle in hand. His voice was steady, but his blood was ice. "They're not sending assassins this time. They're sending an army." The ground shook again, harder this time. Cracks spread across the stone floor. The sisters rushed to the balcony, Ethan close behind. Beyond the high walls of the estate, the city lights flickered. Shadows moved like waves. Dozens, no, hundreds, of armored figures marched in silence, their weapons glowing faint red. War, banners swayed, marked with the same hunter's symbol carved into the sisters' home. Sarah gripped her blades. "The Empire has come." Ethan scanned the scene. "This isn't an assassin's game anymore. It's a siege." Lyra's voice was calm but tight. "They will not stop until we are dust." Ethan turned to them both. "Then we fight. But if you fight like prey, you'll die. Tonight, you fight like humans, like survivors." The gates shuddered as the first barrage struck. Explosions ripped through the air, rattling the walls. Guards panicked, scattering like frightened animals. Servants screamed, some fleeing, some hiding. Ethan barked orders, his soldier's voice cutting through the chaos. "Barricade the inner halls. Get water, bandages, weapons. If you can't fight, stay out of the way." Some obeyed, but many still hesitated. Fear chained them. Sarah slammed her blade into the ground. "Anyone who runs will not live long enough to regret it." Her voice, filled with fire, froze the servants. Slowly, trembling, they followed Ethan's orders. Lyra stood at the center, her hands glowing brighter than before. A shimmering shield, of blue light formed over the inner gate, holding back falling stone. For the first time she wielded her gift openly. Ethan watched her, surprised. "You said you don't use it for harm." Lyra's eyes hardened. "I said I do not use it for hate. Tonight I use it for survival." The walls cracked. Enemy soldiers poured through like a flood of steel. Ethan raised his rifle, shots ringing out, cutting down the first wave. Saris leapt into the fray, her blades spinning arcs of fire, carving through armored foes. Lyra stood behind, her light casting barriers to block arrows and bolts. Each strike that might have ended Ethan or Saris burned out against her shimmering walls. But the enemy kept coming. Ethan fought like he had on Earth. Every strike precise, every bullet measured. He shouted for the guards to hold their ground. He shoved a servant out of the way of a falling spear. He moved like a wall of his own, refusing to break. Saris fought beside him, reckless and fierce, her laughter echoing through the chaos. "Not bad for a human," she shouted, blade slicing down 2 attackers at once. Ethan smirked, reloading. "Not bad for someone who almost poisoned herself yesterday." She growled, but her grin was wild. Hours dragged like years. The courtyard was painted with smoke and flame. The sisters moved in perfect rhythm with Ethan now, Lyra shielding, Saris striking, Ethan holding the line. But when the second wave came, heavier armored and carrying war engines, Ethan realized the truth. "They're not just here to kill you," he said between shots. "They're here to erase you." Lyra's face went pale. Saris's eyes burned hotter. "Then let them try." The war engines slammed into the outer walls, shaking the house to its bones. Ethan knew the barricades wouldn't hold. He pulled the sisters close. "Listen to me. When those walls fall, you don't wait. You move with me every step. You fight smart, not hard. Understand?" Saris bristled. "We do not run. You do if I say so." Ethan cut in. His voice was hard, sharper than steel. "I wasn't hired to die here, and neither were you. If you want to live, you listen." For the first time, Saris didn't argue. She nodded. Lyra placed a hand on Ethan's arm, her touch soft but steady. "We trust you." The walls shattered. Fire tore through the night. The enemy surged in like a tide. Ethan led the sisters through the chaos, cutting down any who came close. Saris struck beside him, blades dripping fire. Lyra's shields burst like stars, blocking arrows and bombs. But as they reached the inner hall, a voice boomed across the battlefield. "Daughters of the fallen warlord!" A towering figure stepped into view, clad in black armor that gleamed under the firelight. His face was hidden by a mask of iron, his sword nearly as tall as Ethan himself. The soldiers parted around him, bowing in silence. Lyra's breath caught. "General Vorak," Saris hissed, her fire burning hotter. "The butcher of our clan." Ethan raised his rifle, but something in Vorak's presence made his gut twist. This was no assassin, no mercenary. This was war itself, wrapped in flesh and steel. The general's voice cut through the flames. "Your bloodline ends tonight. No human mercenary will change that." Ethan stepped forward, steady, unflinching. "Then you don't know humans." The hall shook as Vorak raised his blade. Ethan braced himself, sisters at his side. For the first time, they were not 3 strangers bound by a contract. They were a unit, a family, and together, they would face the storm. The fire of the siege still roared outside. Smoke curled through, broken windows and the night sky burned red. Ethan stood firm in the shattered hall, his rifle steady, his jaw tight. Beside him, Saris's golden eyes glowed like molten fire, her blades ready to taste blood. Lyra's calm hands shimmered with blue light, her shield forming a protective veil over them all. General Vorak towered before them, black armor gleaming, his sword raised high. His voice rolled like thunder. "You are prey pretending to be warriors. Tonight your father's cursed line dies." Saris stepped forward, fire in her eyes. "You killed our kin. You slaughtered our people. Come and try to finish it." Ethan moved with her, shoulder to shoulder. "He's not getting past me." Lyra's voice trembled but did not break. Together. We fight together. The clash came sudden, violent. Vorak's blade struck down with the weight of a falling star. Ethan blocked with his rifle, sparks flying, the weapon nearly ripped from his hands. Saris darted in with twin strikes, her blades flashing, but Vorak swept her aside with a single swing. Only Lyra's barrier kept her from being cut in two. Ethan fired point blank, the bullet slamming into Vorak's armor. The general barely flinched. His black iron plates glowed faint red, feeding on the heat of battle. He's shielded, Ethan growled. We need to break his defense. Saris spat blood, rising to her feet. Then we cut until it breaks. No, Ethan said sharply. We fight smart. The general pressed forward, each step shaking the ground. Ethan dodged a swing that shattered the stone floor. Lyra held the shield high, straining as Vorak's blade slammed against it again and again. Her breath came ragged, her hands trembling with the effort. I cannot hold it much longer, she whispered. Ethan's mind raced. He had fought warlords before, but never one who seemed less man and more machine. He scanned the armor, looking for weakness. There, a faint seam at the neck, glowing where the energy fed through. Small but enough. Saris, Ethan barked. Aim high, the neck. She leapt with a roar, spinning through the air. Her blade slashed against the seam, sparks flying. Vorak staggered, his growl shaking the hall. Lyra seized the moment. Her hands glowed brighter than ever before, her blue light forming not just a shield but a spear. She hurled it forward, striking the gap Saris had cut open. The general roared in pain. His armor cracked, energy spilling out in waves. Ethan charged, slamming his knife deep into the wound. He pushed with all his strength, the blade biting past, iron and flesh. Vorak howled, collapsing to one knee. You are nothing, he gasped, blood hissing as it touched the stone. Ethan leaned close, his voice steady as ice. I'm human. That's enough. With a final strike, Saris drove her blade through his chest. The general fell, his massive frame crashing into the ground, shaking the hall. Silence followed. Only the crackle of fire and the sisters' heavy breathing filled the air. The soldiers outside saw their leader fall. Panic spread like fire. Within minutes, the enemy lines broke, scattering into the night. The siege ended not with the fall of the sisters' home, but with the fall of the Empire's executioner. Ethan dropped his rifle, blood dripping from his arm, exhaustion dragging at his body. Yet he stood tall. He looked at the sisters, alive, unbroken, standing strong beside him. Lyra's violet eyes shone with quiet tears. You saved us. Saris sheathed her blades, her grin sharp but full of something new. Respect. Not bad, for a stubborn human. Ethan smirked faintly. Guess I earned my pay. Lyra shook her head, stepping closer. You earned more than coin. You earned trust. Family. The following days were spent rebuilding. The walls were patched, the halls cleaned of ash. The servants slowly returned. Word spread through the colony. The sisters had survived the Empire's wrath, and by their side was the human mercenary who refused to leave. Ethan trained the guards personally, teaching them discipline, not fear. Saris sparred with him daily, her laughter loud even when he knocked her flat. Lyra walked the halls with renewed strength, her light no longer hidden but guiding. One evening, as the sun dipped low, the three of them sat in the courtyard where they had first met. The stone was scarred, but flowers still grew in cracks between. Saris stretched, golden, eyes catching the light. So human, are you leaving now that the danger's past? Ethan leaned back, arms folded. Doesn't look like the danger's past. Your enemies won't stop with one failed siege. You'll need someone stubborn to keep you alive. Lyra's soft smile warmed the fading air. Then stay. Not as a guard, as family. Ethan looked at them both. Two alien sisters, once strangers, now something more. He had been hired for coin, but he had found something rarer, something worth more than any contract. Home. But even as peace settled for a moment, Ethan knew the shadows would rise again. The Empire would not forget. Other generals would come. Yet, he felt no fear, not anymore. Because when they came, they would not find two sisters hiding in fear. They would find a family, sisters and human, standing together. And humanity's strength would echo through every battle to come.